Welcome back to Stab the Dragon for episode number 80, whiskey review number 48. And tonight, November 7th, 2022, we'll look at a special request from Jason, who watches my channel. Here we go, Jason. Tres Hombres ZZTop Blended Bourbon from Balcones. Or is it? This whiskey is very problematic, as we shall find out. Just the facts. This whiskey bottle is not at all like the other Balcones whiskey bottles. I have here a bottle of Brimstone, a fine Balcones product, and all their bottles look like Brimstone, right? That kind of short, squatty bottle. This is a tall, slender, Western-style bottle. The label, nowhere does it say Balcones. It does have the right address for Balcones, however, 11th Street, but then it says Holding Company, Waco, Texas. But there's no brand name anywhere on this 750 milliliter bottle. This bottle is, however, complete with some wonderful details, including the mash bill, which is, here's the short version, 2/3 of this is from Indiana, presumably MGP, and 1/3 from Texas, presumably Balcones. But again, Balcones' name is nowhere on this bottle. This whiskey comes in at 47% ABV or 94 proof and costs $49 at Total Wine the last week of October 2022. My score for this whiskey is an 81. Letter grade, B+. Recommendation: if you want to try the new whiskey category of blended bourbon, this would be a good one to try. The taste alone is very good, but I bought this whiskey under the assumption I was getting Balcones, and that is definitely not what this is. This is, however, a great introduction to the famous or infamous Texas Funk, as it only comprises about 1/3 of this whiskey. It's noticeable, but it's muted. Will I buy another bottle of this whiskey when this one is gone? I'll tell you at the end. Details. History. I've already covered the basics of the history of Balcones Distillery in the previous videos, including the drama of the board firing Chip Tate, 2014, and kind of a hostile takeover. But that wasn't enough drama for Balcones. No, this past week, we have more Balcones drama, and I think that affects this whiskey review significantly. In fact, I know it does. You see, in the first week of November, Diageo purchased Balcones. Much sadness here. This is not good. Diageo is a major worldwide corporation founded in 1997. They own big brands like Johnnie Walker, the best-selling scotch in the world, right? And I love Johnnie Walker products. Buchanan's Scotch. Crown Royal, for goodness sake, the best-selling whiskey in America. And it's a Canadian whiskey owned by Diageo. Smirnoff Vodka. Guinness Beer. So yeah, this is a big mega corporation. Now they own a little bit of Texas. The heart and soul of Texas whiskey. I am so bummed out about this. But let's ask questions about the history of Tres Hombres whiskey. This is a fairly new whiskey for Balcones, being released only a year ago in 2021, November of 2021. The band worked with Balcones during the COVID year of 2020 to figure this stuff out. Fred Minnick was involved in this process, right? And they did a lot of tastings and video conferencing because of COVID. So they tasted samples to get the blend just right. And then that edition, the first edition of Tres Hombres, sold out immediately after they released it. Well, then they had to come up with another edition. So that was released in May of this year, 2022. That one has now apparently sold out. And so they had to come up with a third edition. And why they did what they did to this whiskey, I have no clue. I can't find any answers online. I've researched a lot of places online. Can't find the answers. Yeah, I've not called the distillery. I'm tempted to do that. I've only done that once with the distillery, but so they've abandoned all that work over the past 2 or 3 years, and they've gone in a totally different direction. Oof. The Balcones website still lists the old Balcones Tres Hombres as of 11/6/22. When I checked the website, they say the whiskey is made from Balcones blue corn, Balcones malted barley, and Balcones rye. And, they distill those separately. They age them separately, and then they blend it, which is kind of like how Canadian whiskey's done, by the way. The bottle on the website shows this kind of bottle, right? And it's at 50% ABV. I've seen it at Total Wine. I went to Total Wine 2 weeks ago looking for this. It wasn't there. Instead, I find this, right? And I can find nothing about the change to this new bottle and this new recipe. It's very frustrating. There are some web articles from September of this year announcing a new release of Tres Hombres as a bourbon. So there, they give you a clue that they're changing the recipe, but they leave out key details. Like, oh, it's MGP bourbon. Right. But it sounds like they knew some changes were coming. Now, history of ZZTop, briefly, they're not one of my favorite bands. I listen to some of it, just a little bit, but their style's just not my style. But it was founded in 1969 here in Texas. They're a Texas band. Blues rock band. Okay, so that's a cool combination, really. Their 1973 album was Tres Hombres, and it was their first top 10 charted album. So that's why the name here, right? Well, scoring. Because this was such a short-lived whiskey before this major change, I really can't give it a good history score. Only 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 points. Marketing, bottle, packaging. Now this is a celebrity whiskey. It's got ZZTop in the name, right? And so it's a celebrity whiskey. That's to me like a whole category. It's not a legal definition of a type of whiskey. Blended bourbon is a legal definition, okay? So, but in the big category of things, it's a celebrity whiskey. So that comes self-equipped with a lot of marketing, right? People who are fans of ZZTop and who like whiskey, yeah, no wonder this thing sold out twice, right? But now with a complete change in the bottle and no brand name of Balcones, this is kind of a one-off orphan. I don't know what to think of this. The old bottle and the whiskey was featured on the website of Balcones, but that's now old news. I can find nothing out there about this change. The bottle is a classic tall Western style whiskey bottle with a real wood cork, by the way. Yeah, we got a real cork. So I actually like this kind of bottle better than the regular Balcones bottles. I don't like these short, squatty things. Okay, so it's an attractive bottle. Okay, it's not my favorite style bottle, but it's nice. I really like the label. Okay, this is like old parchment, and you can see like it's torn. Fake torn. It's designed that way, but I like the faded brown parchment style thing. You got this little gold band down there. It's nice. You got the Tres Hombres from the album there. It's got a very good label down here at the bottom that gives you lots of details. So the marketing, bottle, packaging is really pretty good, with the exception of there's no brand name on the bottle. Nowhere. Okay. The label's got some hoo-ha stuff on it here on the back. Let me read this. Little Old Band from Texas presents, with 3 grains, 3 mash bills, and 3 years baked in the southern heat. That little old band from Texas comes together again for the release of Tres Hombres ZZTop blend of straight bourbon whiskey, harkening back to the classic Southern blues, amplified by the crunch of Texas rock and roll and saturated in the tone of American single malt. Here's to memories formed over a full glass with friends at your side and the music turned up loud. Now there's some interesting things in here, but I'll look at that here in a bit as we study composition. But the bottom line is I have no news articles that explain the changes here. It leaves out some key information. And then there conflicting information here? I think so, but we'll look at that in just a bit. News releases, obviously the Diageo purchase is all over the whiskey news, but again, it doesn't tell us why it affected this. So marketing bottle packaging, 3 out of 5, because without the Balcones label and name on here or some explanation, I can't really give it a good score. So 3 out of 5 points. Now let's talk composition. The Celebrity Whiskey is a blended bourbon whiskey coming in at 94 proof in this 750 milliliter bottle. What is a blended bourbon? This is an official category, right? This is just like bourbon or American whiskey or corn whiskey. Blended bourbon is a legal thing. It's, the short version of this is it must be at least 51% straight bourbon, okay? And when you look at this, what does it say? A blend of straight bourbon whiskey. There you go. And when you look at the mash bill, see, it gives you the mash bill on here. What you've got is it says origin, proportion, age, and mash bill. So under origin, and each of these has 3 different entries. So under origin, the first one, Indiana, proportion 33.33%, age 5 years and 5 months, mash bill, corn 60%, rye 36%, malted barley 4%. That's good details. Next level next line here, it says Indiana 33.33% under proportion, age 3 years 4 months, mash bill, corn 52%, rye 44%, malted barley 4%. So what you'll notice, Indiana, now it doesn't say MGP, but we all kind of assume that, right? But 2/3 of this then is MGP. Notice the years. The first third is over 5 years, almost 5.5 years. The next one is 3 1/3 years. Okay, so that's a little bit young for Indiana bourbon. But notice the proportions here, very high rye. The first one has got 36% rye. The second one's got 44% rye. That's great. If you're a high rye guy like I am, I like a whiskey with high rye. So that's going to add some spiciness to it. And then instead of just barley, it's got malted barley, 4% and 4%. The final contribution here, it says Texas. Well, there we can presume Balcones, but it doesn't say that. 33 and 33.33%. Age, 3 years, 1 month, and it's 100% corn. All right, 3 years, over 3 years in the Texas heat, we can presume that's going to make a lot of difference in this bourbon. So, and corn, we can assume it's the blue corn that Balcones always uses. But see up above, in this hoo-ha statement, it says 3 grains. Okay, well, yeah, corn, barley, and rye. Gotcha. But the blue corn is like very different from what MGP regularly uses. 3 mash bills, yeah. But then it says 3 years baked in the southern heat. Well, is that just the Balcones portion? That would make sense, but it sounds like it's the whole thing, and I don't think that's true. It says, Indiana, 5 years, 5 months. So that stuff's aged in Indiana is what is my interpretation of it. It's a ZZTop blend of straight bourbon whiskey. Yeah, 2/3 of it is. Harkening back to classic Southern Blue. Okay, so at any rate, the mash bill is detailed, but it's also obscuring some things. So you know, but good A for effort there on including all of that. Um, but here's the deal: when you look at the old Tres Hombres, which is a year ago, the initial release, and then the second release in May, it was all Balcones. And how they did it, I mean, the stuff that I've read, the videos I've watched, is they distilled their malted barley, they distilled their blue corn, and they distilled their rye. And then they aged them separately in malted single malt casks, is what that said. Okay, and then they blended it after that in the Canadian manner. So that's the old way of doing it. And so here, this is very different, very totally different stuff. Okay, so composition, again, no explanation for the change. 14 out of 15 points, though. I'm going to be generous there. Despite the changes, they did a good job of detailing what's in the bottle, and that's what composition is all about in my scoring system. So 14 out of 15, minus 1 point there because there's still a little obfuscation going on. Appearance. Let's look at this whiskey. This is a medium amber. I'm not using my Glencairn tonight. I'm using a rocks glass without the rocks. There you go. Because I got this at Acre Distillery. I mean, I love Acre Distillery here in Fort Worth. So, but you can look in here and well, it's a medium color. This is not exceptionally dark. It's got a little bit of a red tinge. I think there's a trace elements of the purple corn. So appearance, I'm going to say, is a 3, not a 4. And in most Texas whiskeys, you're going to be a 4 or a 5. So only 3 points for appearance. Nose. Now, like most bourbons, my nose is just so broken I can't smell. Okay, here I'm getting a little bit, which is pretty good for a bourbon. There's vague hints of rye spice. Slight dusting of corn, perhaps, not much. But I'm definitely getting a little bit of the Texas funk, okay? And that's that 1/3 from Balcones that's coming through. So I'm going to give it 8 points on the nose, which is a point higher than I would normally give a bourbon because my nose just is inadequate for bourbon, whatever. So let's go to taste. Here we go, the all-important taste. This is definitely a different bourbon blend. It's good. It's very good, but it's different. I think that 1/3 mixture of Balcones corn whiskey brings the Texas funk, that char, that smoky quality that's just part of Texas whiskey. If you've had some Balcones Baby Blue or True Blue, you'll recognize it, or even the bourbon. But when you mix that with 2/3 of Indiana bourbon, and that Indiana bourbon's got a high rye mash bill, you get some wonderful spicy bourbon going on here. So it's got just a hint of the Texas funk and then a lot of the rye spice mixed in with the corn sweetness. This is actually very good. But keep in mind, this is not the old Tres Hombres from Balcones. So it's going to be very different. If you had, I have not even had a taste of the original edition. And so, you know, I can't really compare just off of the videos that I've watched and off the reviews that I've read. But I dare say this has to be very different from the old version. Now, this is good. This is really good because it still has the Texas funk going on, and I love that. And I watch a lot of whiskey shows, and SLB, Bourbon, Kurt, there, bless his heart, he just can barely stand Texas whiskeys. He's not a fan. That Texas funk just throws him off. He loves classic bourbon flavors, and And man, once you've had the Texas Funk, if you either like it or you don't, and I love it. So it's present here, but it's muted. To further confuse the issue, I think this stuff is finished in American single malt casks. So let me just tell you that this is an incredibly complex whiskey, both in the making and in the tasting. Is this a fine symphony of flavors, or is it a cacophony of flavors? I think it's a fine symphony. This really works. It tastes great, really. It's fantastic. You know, maybe not quite fantastic, but this is very good. This bottle may taste even better to me as I go further down, because that's typical of me with a bottle. Is usually by the time I get halfway down a bottle, I'm at the full potential of the flavor there. So for scoring 23 out of 25 points, that's pretty high for me. 23 points for taste. Mouthfeel and finish. At 94 proof, this has a good full mouthfeel. It's a bit oily. It's not super rich, but it's good. The high rye gives it a spicy flavor, spicy tingly feel. It lingers. I get a little bit of a burn up in the sinus cavity, which I enjoy. Not much of a throat burn. Sometimes it can burn down here a little bit in the chest, just a little bit once in a while, not every drink. But this is almost smooth, but the spiciness of the rye plus the little bit of Texas Funk are pronounced. So yeah, mouthfeel and finish, 13 out of 15. Let's talk price, value, and availability. I got this for $49 at Total Wine in October of 22. But the website has it listed at $53.99, but it pictures the old bottle with the Balcones name and 50% ABV. So they dropped the ABV down to 94 points, right? Neither Specs nor Goody Goody list this on their website, and I don't recall ever seeing it at those stores, only at Total Wine. Is this a good price and value? Well, I bought it. It's interesting. It's very good. But I got to tell you that I'm disappointed that it's no longer the legit Balcones Tres Hombres. I think it tastes worth $49, but you're no longer buying the real McCoy. You know, it's not widely distributed, I guess, so its availability is low. The other two editions of it sold out so quickly. So price, value, and availability, I can only give it a 7 out of 10. Neat or mixer? To me, this is great neat, obviously, but I think the flavor and the proof would stand up to drinking it on the rocks or in a cocktail, either one. So 5 points for neat or mixer. Bonus points. Usually with these Texas whiskeys, I give 5 bonus points because I'm a homeboy, right? This is a unique blend. It's a celebrity whiskey, and it's pretty cool in some ways, and it's definitely tasty. But man, without the Balcones name, with the change in the mash bill and the bottle, I can only give it 2 out of 5 bonus points. So my total score is pretty low. It's an 81. Letter grade, though, B+. Why the difference in letter grade and score? Letter grade really emphasizes the flavor, the taste, the mouthfeel, you know, those points. So it is a B+. And really, if you were drinking this blind and did not know the tragic history of this thing going on, I'd probably give it an A- to an A. I mean, it's good. It's very tasty. But, man, just the history behind this, the disappointment that I'm experiencing here, I just can't give it more than a B+. My recommendation, if I was just, you know, tasting the whiskey and all that, this is really good. But with all the other criteria thrown in here, it's got some problems in those peripheral areas like history and composition. This is not Balcones Tres Hombres of even a couple of months ago. Still tasty. It's actually a good introduction to the Texas flavor because you got a little bit of that funk. As a celebrity whiskey, this is quite good. I'm going to say it's far better than Matthew McConaughey's Long Branch coming out of Wild Turkey. I've got Long Branch. I'll do a review because it's Texas related. Uh, but if you're a fan of the band ZZ Top and you like whiskey, I'm going to say this is a must-have, even though Balcones has changed it up. Will I buy this whiskey again when the bottle's finished? Probably not. No. But how will this compare with other blended bourbons? I think it's better than the Herman Marshall Dry County blended bourbon for sure. So again, tasting, this is pretty good. In conclusion, this whiskey has some mystery about it for sure that I couldn't find the answers for. It's got some serious disappointments, but it tastes remarkably good. Very complex with a hint of the Texas funk. So, my conclusion is drink at your own risk. It's not the real Balcones thing. That's probably gone. I don't know what Diageo's doing with this. Who knows? The ZZ Top, maybe they pulled it and said, hey, we've got to change this up. I don't know what happened. Okay, it could be that it sold so well, Balcones ran out of stuff. They didn't have the stuff to make it. That could happen, right? And so they got desperate and they said, oh, we've got to, go to MGP for this. Maybe that's it. Maybe they'll come back with the real ZZ Top later. I don't know. Well, Veterans Day is coming up this week on Friday. So I hope to do another whiskey review this weekend of a military-themed whiskey. Hope to see you then. Stab the Dragon out here.